Hey everyone, how's it going? Well, last review we followed the themes of broken families and dark secrets with John Black's sad story, A Silent Hell. Themes that we'll be continuing today with Captain America, but not Steve Rogers, the man who ironically was teetering on obscurity in real life until appearing alongside his grandson in the Disney Plus show Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That man is Isaiah Bradley, who debuted in today's story, Captain America, Truth. Originally written in 2003 under the title Truth, Red, White, and Black, and was written by Robert Morales and Cal Baker on art, the series and character on a whole was inspired by an offhand comment by publisher Bill James, who said something like inherent politics of wrapping a black man in the red, white, and blue, and that it could be, quote, a large story, a metaphor for America itself, which would inspire editor Alex Alonso, who would pitch the idea to Morales as writer. And though the two would debate on how to approach the story, with a few revisions, like Isaiah originally being written to be a scientist who made his own version of the super soldier serum, to Isaiah having an origin being more inspired by the very tragic and very real Tuskegee experiments. Yeah, as you can guess, if you weren't already familiar with the character of Isaiah Bradley's story in the series, it's going to be a serious emotional gut punch, and it's not for the faint of heart. Morales pulled no punches in writing this tale, but I'm getting ahead of myself, and let's get started on Captain America, Truth. Warning, spoilers. Our story begins not unlike Steve Rogers' tale in Queens, New York in the 1940s. Isaiah and his wife Faith are enjoying the World's Fair, which decide to dedicate the week to colored citizens, which was a real thing in the 1940s. In fact, it was originally just a day back in the 1890s, with displays which of course were incredibly racist. Speaking of, Isaiah and Faith's day ends up getting spoiled as the two are denied by a worker who refused to let them in one of the attractions due to their race. Yep, even on a week that is dedicated to colored citizens in the 1940s are still the 1940s. Isaiah's about to punch this guy's lights out, but Faith stops him. After that, we are introduced to our supporting cast, like Maurice Canfield, a Philadelphia man who is the son of a family who is very well off, who unlike Isaiah didn't avoid getting into fights with some racist jackasses. Unfortunately, it did end up in court where the judge gives him two choices: jail time or join the military, and you can guess where he signed up. Then there's Luke Evans. No, not that guy. Sergeant Evans is a veteran who served in the army for 17 years, became a captain only for his bosses to screw him over and demote him. So of course, he's pissed. Once America got involved in WW2, Isaiah, who enlisted as a way to support his growing family as Faith was pregnant, meets with Maurice and Evans, along with their fellow soldiers. They immediately go through hell as they are forced to do some demeaning tasks while resisting the urge to kick the crap out of some of fellow soldiers that, you guessed it, are racist. At first, things might start looking up, at least for Isaiah, who sees a picture of his firstborn, but that immediately gets worse as they are taken under the command of Colonel Price and his Weasley-ass assistant, Lieutenant Merritt, who is forcing them to go through a series of experiments that we quickly learn are part of the Super Soldier program, with the results being Isaiah, Maurice, and Evans, and two other soldiers out of the 300 would survive and become a special covert team to take out the Nazis. How do they fare on their missions? What events would lead to Isaiah becoming Captain America? How does Steve learn the truth? And how will he react to it? Of course, you're gonna have to read the story to find out. This comic is great, but yeah, it also is an emotional journey. It's a phenomenal introduction to Isaiah in the Marvel Universe, and as I've mentioned before, Morales did not pull his punches when writing this tale. There's also discussions of other not-so-proud moments in history, a classic reminder to remember our history or we're doomed to repeat it. Now, let's get into characters. Starting with, of course, with the man with so little time in the comics, yet creating a massive impact, Isaiah Bradley. Isaiah, though never meeting Steve during the war, definitely has a lot in common with him. They're both pretty humble men who truly want to help others and want to believe their fellow man, and of course will be there when lives are at risk. Unfortunately, for Isaiah, that mentality is of course tested due to how he's treated just for his race. He's treated less of a man and more of a weapon, yet despite that, Isaiah seems to be able to keep it together, because in the end, he knows that he is a good man and a hero, regardless of what they say about him. Next, we got our antagonist here, Colonel Price and Lieutenant Merritt. It's already clear that they are racist in every sense of the word, but it gets worse with them. These two act as if they truly value the country, but in actuality, they're just in it for their self-interest, willing to ruin lives to get what they want, which in most cases involves profit. Now, when it comes to Price, it is made very clear that though he doesn't care for people of color, storyteller, it's kind of implied that he sees almost everyone beneath him and really doesn't care which side they're on, as long as he's seen with respect and cash is in the bank. Merritt, on the other hand, is shown to be pretty much a suck up to Price and is pretty loyal to him, all while acting like a dictator to Bradley and his fellow soldiers. Throughout the entire story, you're just waiting for either one of the super soldiers or even Steve to just wail on the guy. I will say they both get what's coming to them, but gotta say, as satisfying as it is, it's also bittersweet given of when it happens. Faith Bradley, though having a limited appearance after Isaiah was sent off, definitely plays a greater role in the larger scheme of things. Wiser beyond her years, and the first one to call bull when Price tries to make everyone think that the soldiers died in action, you're really rooting for her to find the truth and be reunited with her husband. Faith Bradley as a character would return much like her husband after Truth, and also much like her husband would leave a greater impact into comics and be one of the inspirations for the next generation of heroes. Next, we got the two other super soldiers, Evans and Maurice. I'm putting them together despite having great introductions. They kinda had the same amount of development in the story, but at least that's more they can say about the other two super soldiers on the team. Evans, as I mentioned, is an experienced soldier who has been through some serious hell and yet gets screwed over for simply just being himself. He's done things he's not proud of and even has a whole scene dedicated to himself monologuing about one of the reasons he was demoted. Now, despite that, however, he still cares for his fellow soldiers and tries his best to be the leader they need. Maurice is a kind-hearted soul when you first meet him. In fact, if you read this comic without knowing the backstory, you'd probably think that Maurice was going to be Captain America. Unfortunately, Maurice would be tested a lot, and unlike Bradley, he will not have such an easier time. Without saying what happens exactly, it makes what happens to Merritt in the end even more satisfying. The art by Kyle Baker works in the most parts, with the main inspiration for the style being classic comic strips like Blondie's, Peanuts, etc., and it gives this really interesting false sense of nostalgia and innocence, yet not being overly cartoony, at least for most of the characters. Unfortunately, some characters like Merritt are the exception, looking a bit too cartoony and even a bit over the top in some cases. This could really mess it up, especially when it comes to the more serious parts of the story. Then you got characters like Price and Steve who look a bit too stiff and are put in weird action poses, making them look more silly when discussing some crazy revelations and dark secrets. Besides that, the action is drawn pretty well, and though it can be a bit distracting, it won't completely ruin the story for you. Captain America Truth is an amazing comic, and it took a bold step by shaking up the Marvel Universe in the best ways possible. And though there would be some complications later on, Isaiah Bradley and his family were never forgotten to the comic fans, and thanks to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, more and more are coming. Thanks for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and next time, we're not done with the Bradley family yet, as we now discuss Isaiah's grandson, Eli, as we see his big start into heroism in Young Avengers Volume 1, Sidekicks.